Hello everyone, we're ready for chapter 43 of The Treasure Hunter's Tale. Chapter 43. Iron told everyone he met that he was now walking in the King's Road and about his time on the hill, and showed everyone that cared his nice new armour. He was aware, even at that young age, that his armour would not always be as shiny and smooth as it was this day, so he wanted to make the most of it before it became dented and scratched in the trials of life ahead. You see, even at his age, Iron had witnessed the sadness of the loss of his uncle Discover the Truth, and the worrying time of Mr. Saved-by-Grace's depression, not to mention Freddie's valiant battle with the Wolfmen, as Iron referred to them. And just recently he had seen the tears shed by Hope when the bullying at school took its toll on her. Now to hear that his own father had been badly treated when he was a little boy. Iron knew life was tough, and it didn't get any less tough when you started on the King's Road, but he also knew that the King would always help him, as he had witnessed him help Freddie and Hope and his mother and father too. And so it was that he had a new drive to tell those he visited about his new faith, and even though his childish understanding stumbled over some things, his trust in the King was undeniable, and greatly impressed those folk he talked to as he went on the visits with Hope and his mother. And all this time, while things were going on in the town of Restored, our various characters from this tale are slowly but determinedly making their way back to the town to meet up once again to celebrate Hope's baptism. Set free with Sure Hope and Johnny were making their way back home over the mountainous lands they had been traversing, and as they went they spread the word of the danger of the dragons, but also the good news of the one who can rescue anyone caught up by them or any other sins. They also made sure to warn of the possibility of the Wolfmen, as Hope called them, coming into their town, and warned them of their trickery and lies, so that those two wicked ones were thrown out of many a dwelling place. Ears to Hear and Mr. Saved-by-Grace were also making their way back. They had had to cross a raging river, and the crossing had been pretty treacherous, but once they were on the bank safely on the other side, Ears to Hear discovered an oyster shell in the shallows while he was filling his water bottle, and inside was the most beautiful shining pearl, which of course reminded him of that great parable of the kingdom of heaven that Jesus the Prince Emmanuel had told while he was here on this earth. Taste and See that the Lord is good, and Serve the Lord were also making their way back home. Their journey had been fairly smooth until they came across two young women who tried to entice them to stop and stay with them forever, where they promised many pleasures, but the faithful young men stopped their ears and ran for their lives, for they knew these women were of the Evil One himself. They had also had direct conflict with the Evil One, who challenged their faith, but the King used this time of trial and temptation to strengthen the men for the bigger battle to come. But I've said too much. Freddie was working in his shop, Daily Bread, one day when the little bell over the door jingled, and in walked a bent-over old lady. She was clearly a little nervous of entering, but Freddie noticed she was wearing the King's armour, so he went to welcome her as a sister. "Good morning," he said, smiling at her. The old lady tried to straighten herself so she could look at the young man talking to her, but struggled to do so. "And to you, young man, I'm sure," she said huskily, for she had been in this bent position for many years, and the pain that she suffered often took a good deal of her breath away. She smiled at him. "I see you're one of the King's followers," she said, smiling at Freddie. "I am, as are you," said Freddie cheerfully. "Tell me, young man, do you have a nice plaque with scripture on it that would look nice in my kitchen?" Freddie smiled to himself. It was only recently that he had started branching out into this exact thing at the suggestion of his mother, as she had read in her Bible from Deuteronomy, where it says that people should write God's words on the walls and doorposts of their house, and so she had suggested having carvings made of wood with simple, encouraging Bible verses for people to display in their homes to always remind them of the King and his love for them. "We do indeed," he said. "Did you have a particular scripture in mind?" he said, ushering her to one of the cosy chairs, another suggestion from Mrs. Beloved of the King to encourage Freddie's customers to stay and read. "Thank you kindly, young man," said the lady as she carefully lowered herself into the chair. "And yes, I do have a particular one in mind." "And if we don't have it, I can get it made specially," said Freddie. "Well, I would hope you would," said the lady, "for it is the most well-beloved verse of many a person on this road." Freddie looked at her. "'Tis John chapter 3, verse 16, said the lady. Freddie laughed. "You're right," he said. "That really is a well-known one." He went to look on the shelves. "Aha, here we go," he said, pulling out a lovely carved slab. The lady fumbled for her purse. Freddie was in no hurry for her to pay, as he felt that it would be good for the lady to sit a while, and so he drew up another chair and began to chat. "I've not seen you around here before, I think," said Freddie. The lady chuckled. "Nor you have. Not for want of me living here for many years," said the lady, "for I've been unable to leave the house for over a decade." She put her hand on her back. "My old bones are not what they used to be," she sighed. "Oh, I'm sorry to hear that," said Freddie. "And so have you been alone all these years?" The lady chuckled again. "God bless you, no," she said. "I've been well cared for by my king, and he has sent some of the ladies in the town to care for me and sit with me. Oh, yes," she said, looking at Freddie as best she could. "I get to hear all about the goings-on in this town, and of course have committed you all to prayer." "So if you don't mind me asking," said Freddie, "how come you are now able to walk out?" "I don't mind at all, dearie," said the lady. "I have recently changed doctors, and they have put me on a new medication that's helping my pain, something wonderful. And so I just had to come and see this place for myself, for Mrs. My Weakness's strength has told me all about it." She placed her wrinkled arthritic hand on Freddie's knee. "I'm so pleased I did," she said, beaming at him. Freddie put his hand on hers. "So am I," he said quietly. "So tell me," he said, "why this verse in particular?" The lady had a far-off look in her eyes. "Because it is basically the good news of the king in just a little pocket verse," she said softly. "I will tell you this verse has got me through some very trying times," she said. Freddie was intrigued. There was something about the way she said it that made him want to find out more. "Do tell," he said, moving his chair a little closer, so the lady did not have to raise her voice too much, as he could hear that all this talking was taking its toll on her breathing. "Well," she began, "there was a time when this scripture was the only thing that kept me going," she said. "You see, my dear, and this may shock you rather, and you probably won't believe it when I tell you, but a long time ago, when I was a young woman and newly on the King's Road, I was captured by pirates."